Yay! Are we live? Awesome. Hi, welcome to our Patch 3 stream, or as we call it today, Revolution Software's relationship to German adventure gamers. Yay! No German required. How are you all doing? Why don't we introduce ourselves? Charles, you first.
Guten Abend, Wendy. I'm doing very well, thank you. It's lovely. I'm going to try and practice my very, very limited German on my dear friend Jochen, and maybe you as well. And I apologize in advance for any Germans who actually have a love of their language.
Oh, wow. Jochen, you want to follow up with that?
Yeah, I'm waiting. Please exercise your German on me.
Oh, yeah. Charles, you wanted to say something?
I was going to start off by going, Jochen, guten Abend, wie geht es dir?
Danke, sehr gut. Und wie geht es dir?
Oh, good, danke schön. That is the extent of my German. So, do you mind if we go on to English now?
It's fine for me.
So basically, what we're doing for this live stream, what we're celebrating is the fact that Beyond a Steel Sky now has the German language. And under normal circumstances, we would never in a million years have released the game without the German version and the French versions as well. But obviously with COVID and everything, that was all complicated. And I mean, Jochen, you know more as an actor of great acumen and enormous experience. You know about this more because you went to see our friends at Toneworks, didn't you? To see what was going on.
I actually did, and you pushed my career to new limits. Can I give a spoiler already?
Of course. Okay,
there's the infamous goat is also in Beyond the Steel Sky, and I have the honor of voicing the goat in the German version, which really took me to the limits. And but anyway, I mean that's something that's really what everyone I think appreciates about your work is that you put a lot of effort in local versions, and I think have been working with Toneworks for how many games already?
I think we go back to the original Broken Sword, and maybe even Beneath the Steel Sky, the original Beneath the Steel Sky. I don't know, but the thing is that like all things, when you come across people who are really good and very passionate and share your views, then you just keep working with them. We also have a localizer in Cologne called Rolf Busch, who has worked on worked on the original Broken Swords as well, and very passionate, really cares. It makes a lot because in the early days, I remember some of the British developers used text to translations, and that was before Google Translate. And I remember one of the German editors telling me that what they do as a game is they would print the German lines and ask their audience to try and interpret what on earth it was meant to mean because the quality was so poor. But no, it was great. So tell us about this great moment. I mean, can you remember any of the lines that you delivered, Jochen?
That's me. We talked about that. I wouldn't do that, but. Yeah, actually, it's I have to speak in that goat voice, like if a goat was speaking, I had to try to sound like it, like "Hallo, Roger, das ist so unfair," and I think we took like 20 takes. And to get it together, and I hope it remained in there. You promised it would stay in there because yeah.
Oh yeah.
Bragged about it a lot of already.
Hey, I have a question. When you voiced the goat, do you remember when like this terrible Garfield movie came out, like the live-action Garfield movie, early 2010s, like a mess. In German, Thomas Gottschalk voiced that, right? Yeah, and he said he lived with cat food. To get into the role. Did you do that for your goat role? Did you get like some hay stacked into your kitchen cupboards, just the fresh scent in the morning to get you going?
It's probably more the goat cheese. I've been eating a lot in my life, and
that sounds wrong.
Maybe a little stubborn. The stubborn attitude I cultivated. Maybe it helped here, but yeah, actually, I think I learned very late that I would be the goat. I just Charles. I just for fun asked if he had a little tiny role for me in the game, and he said, "Yeah, would you be able to do it in Hamburg on that date?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll be there. Let's do it." And then I learned it would be the goat. So there was already went past the.
You thought you were going to play Foster, Robert Foster, didn't you?
Yeah, and then you humiliated me because I had to choose Foster with the team of Toneworks too, knowing that I wouldn't be. But no, I think I hope everyone likes the German voice of Foster, because I think the English original version is quite unique and has a good tone. And we went through a lot of actors' voices, and that you did before I joined the process too, and I know that there have been a lot of discussions about whom it would be, because you actually, you don't go with the first choice.
Well, what happened is the Toneworks were very courteous, and they sent us, a number of takes. But I can't judge which is the best voice. I mean, that's for Germans, that would be ludicrous. So I thought, who are the Germans that I admire enormously, that I could call on for their expert. And this is a very English joke. You say, I couldn't find any, so I called you, Jochen. I mean, that's the boom boom. That's it. No, but seriously, and thank you for your help on that. That was terrific. So basically, apart from the fact that we have the most extraordinarily talented goat voice, if you actually find the Easter egg, what we're very excited about is that the version on Apple Arcade was released about a week ago. And we have really, really worked to address any issues that have been found, to optimize the game so that on the lower end devices it works more efficiently, to add achievements, and of course to add the German and the French. And I don't know, Jochen or Wendy, because Wendy, of course, you're Austrian, which is fantastic. So we have a fantastic range of German speakers. And one of the things that I always find incredible about when I go to Germany is that, obviously people are speaking in German, of course. And the moment they see that you're English, they immediately switch to English. And it's such an incredibly courteous thing to do. And I had the great pleasure of going to your wedding, Jochen. I was going to say 2 years ago.
It's already 3 years ago, to be honest.
Was it 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, with COVID we stopped counting.
Yeah. But
okay.
Meeting wonderful, your wonderful friends, cuddling lots of their babies whenever I had the opportunity, and as I say, this in beautiful, beautiful woods of the king's forest.
Yes, Königsforst,
near Cologne.
Mm-hmm.
And what a fun day that was. But just the enormous courtesy of everybody. And who was the band that turned up? Tell me their names.
Milieu. It's a Cologne band, and Cologne has a very strong dialect. I live in Cologne now. I'm not from Cologne, so I don't really speak the dialect. And it's a very Cologne band, a young band, and they sing in the local dialect, which is more like a local language. And at some point, I think you went saying to my wife, "It's great, but I don't get any word." And she replied, "Yeah, me neither." So yeah, that was fun. And I think that was also their breakthrough. Yeah,
their breakthrough as well, appearing at your wedding.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. No. I did look them up just the next day on YouTube. And, obviously they filled stadiums, but I don't think that those stadiums will mean anything compared to the pleasure of playing in front of you and your wonderful guests.
But they did a very mean thing. They ate almost all the currywurst we had for the midnight snack. And I know that you are a big fan of currywurst. Did you get any currywurst at the wedding?
No. And do you know, I don't think that there are many people that know much more about currywurst than I do. Now, do you remember Jochen, we've been friends for many years, but it all started when we went on a press tour, didn't we? It was like a road trip. It's what you used to do in the olden days. They don't do it now, where you go to 5 different like German cities. And the first one was
Vienna.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you include it in German cities?
Vienna? Sorry. You were in Vienna?
We fell in love in Vienna.
We love Vienna. We did love Vienna. But Jochen changed my life forever. When we were in Berlin, he said, I will take you for a currywurst. And I was fascinated that a bread roll with a sausage, tomato ketchup and a bit of curry could so captivate the German psyche. But I mean, it does taste delicious, and you go to different towns. But what I loved is when you told me that Hamburg and Berlin both argue that they were the first to invent the currywurst.
Actually, it's the main argument is between Berlin and Bochum, which is the Ruhr Valley area in the west. But now there's a new theory that it was invented in Hamburg. But there are different kinds with skin or without skin, and so there are differences. But you know them all. You're an expert now.
I do. Well, the reason I know them all is when I was in Berlin. I was at EGX a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I love Berlin. I think it's a fabulous city. But I was kind of looking at this guidebook, and they said, "Come to the Currywurst Museum," and I could not believe that even in Germany there would be a museum on currywurst. So anyway, Noreen, my wife, and I paid a pilgrimage. And we went in, and it was like this extraordinary. They arrived and they said, "Would you like this? Would you like this sausage? Would you like it with or without skin?" And I was blown away by all the combinations. So, I have to thank you, Jochen, for introducing this element into my life that I just didn't know hadn't existed up until that moment.
So, why hasn't this reflected in any of your games yet? So, will there be a great currywurst?
There is. In Beyond the Steel Sky, we have mini knackwursts, and the mini knackwursts are absolutely they are inspired by. But our mutual friend, I have to be very careful because our mutual friend Christian Nieb, who's really a lovely guy. When he was over in York, because he was doing some filming. I had a few beers, and I said to him, "Look, Christian," I said, "let's be honest. The sausage." He went, "Yeah." I said, "It's either white or kind of brown." "Yeah." "It's either fried or it's boiled." "Yeah." And it came and I said, "Beyond that, really, there's not that much difference." And he looked forward and he said, "So with your fish and chips, it makes no difference how you make the batter." I went, "Well, of course it does. It doesn't matter how long you cook it for." I said, and I was so outraged. So there you go. Because, I mean, Jochen, you've come to York many times, and I hope you're going to not be too rude about the English cuisine.
No, because you usually take me to French cuisine or Moroccan sausage on the market.
That's true indeed, or indeed, and you're not going to be rude, I hope, about the beer that you drink when I take you.
I love it. I love English beer. It's not all the beers out there. I've had also quite awful ones, but I actually love it. I love that's why before we talked here, I had a chat with Wendy, and I really envy her for living in a small village, and because I think that's the very, very British atmosphere I really enjoy. And thanks for inviting me over to York too, because I think you are really living in a city, in a town that gives you inspiration for your adventure games all the time, doesn't it? Wouldn't work probably if you lived in, I don't want to insult any city right now, but a city without that much culture and heritage.
Well, the only city I have to be very careful. The only city that I'm rather rude about is Daventry.
Okay, then we can agree on Daventry.
And the only reason I'm rude about Daventry is it's a little town next to Luton, and like the jumbo jets go over Daventry when they're about to land at Luton Airport. And the reason that I'm rude about Daventry is that the King's Quest games had King Graham of Daventry. And like, if you were somewhere else in the world, that probably made perfect sense. But if you're English, the idea of a King Graham for a start, Graham's a great name, but there are no kings in history, as far as I know, called Graham. And even if you're called Graham, you most certainly wouldn't live in Daventry.
Right.
So anyway, beyond that, so I think I've ruined my reputation amongst the good folk of Daventry. So I think we can just get away with being a little bit rude about them. I'm sure it's a really lovely place. I've never been there. The only reason I am rude about it is because of the King's Quest connection, which I thought was always a little bit ludicrous.
Yeah, dude.
But Jochen, there's something that I need to ask you.
Yes.
When Tim Schafer did his Kickstarter, he talked about the decline of adventure games, apart from in Germany. So, I mean, we have the most wonderful, passionate community in Germany, which is incredibly humbling, and it is wonderful. We're lucky, though, that Germans love adventure games. Is that due to their superior education? Is it due to the way their minds work? What is it about Germans that make adventures ring out so profoundly?
You could be mean and say they don't like too many changes in their lives, so they stick to what they know. But that would be rude. But I just wanted to balance your suggestive question here that about the superior intellect. I think it has nothing to do with that. I think the Germans, there is a big tradition with the fairy tales that have been told when you were a child, or the Grimm fairy tales, and the whole. I mean, there's also great community here for classic board games. Once a year, there's a biggest European board game fair in Germany, and so probably that situation where you sit together, where you solve puzzles and just also enjoy a story and give it time, and don't have to be in a rush and just be quick. I think that's something that really appeals to many gamers in Germany. And I mean, it's I think also I think that everyone agrees on that. Germany still is one of the strongest markets for adventure games. But I'm sure it's not just Germany. I mean, you are, and everyone appreciates it. You basically, I mean, apart from changes in technology, of course, you really stick to strong narratives and puzzles. Have you ever considered doing something completely different, going away from story-driven games and
No, because I'll tell you why. Because it's really hard writing, an adventure game, and I think I'll tell you the interesting thing is that a lot of. Do you remember at one point a lot of film writers were coming in and writing games?
Yes.
Peter Jackson was writing Doom at one point. Was it Doom? One of the first-person shooters. You had Spielberg working with Electronic Arts on some big project. And none of them came to anything because the interactive narrative has its own very unique rules. And I think it's pretty arrogant for anybody to think they can go straight into somebody else's discipline and succeed. And I thought it was very arrogant that, or maybe dismissive of the big games publishers, to believe that they could parachute in somebody from Hollywood and they would do an amazing job. In the same way that it would be extraordinary for us to think that we could go and write film, for example. But likewise, the people who are writing in other disciplines are so extraordinarily skilled. So that's a very long way of saying no.
Talking about a long way, I think it's probably a question you have been asked before, but I think it's still interesting. Why did it take more than 25 years for a sequel?
Well, as well as I do, how incredibly the whole world has changed. So when we wrote our first game, our first game was Lure of the Temptress in 1992. and we were working for Virgin Interactive. And in those days, everything that got sold was through retail. There was no digital distribution. And so you worked with a publisher, and the publisher would then sell it through through a distributor to a retailer. And Revolution was way away from. We had no way of communicating directly, and ultimately games would only reach market if the retailers took it, and the publishers would only publish it and fund it if they were confident. So you had this situation where initially adventures were very popular in the 90s. And then publishers decided at the end of the 90s that actually what they wanted was 3D. And we had a very interesting situation with Broken Sword, which I ought to sort of step back and say, of course, it's called Baphomet's Fluch in German,
exactly.
And it's called Chevalier de Baphomet in French. And at that time, it didn't matter because people in France and people in Germany and people in the UK, it was called Circle of Blood in the US. And it didn't matter that there were 4 different names, because people didn't talk to each other. That we didn't have that sense of very quick communication that we have now. And so we produced these games, and the adventure was seen to be thriving. And then with the launch of probably the PlayStation, the publishers decided that actually everything had to be visceral and 3D, and all the games looked the same. And Virgin, who were great, but they said they had no interest in publishing Broken Sword on PlayStation because they knew that it was old-fashioned and it would never work. So we went to Sony directly and asked them if they were interested in publishing it, and they weren't enormously interested, but in the end they agreed. And the game was incredibly well received. And what's a good circulation for a magazine now? 20,000 a month?
Yeah, maybe 30, 40,000.
30, 40. In Germany, it's a lot higher. In the UK, it would be 20,000.
It's really low.
So, but at that time, the official PlayStation magazine in the UK had a circulation of 400,000 a month. Germany was about the same. France was probably about the same. So this game that nobody wanted to have any interest in was cover mounted and got 9 out of 10 and full review in magazines that went to 1.5 million people around Europe. And we were very lucky because a lot of people actually first discovered Broken Sword through the official PlayStation magazine across the 3 countries. But this is a very long-winded way of saying, but the publishers were absolutely determined that the adventure was a genre that was dead and had no interest. So they stopped commissioning it. Retailers stopped stocking it. And because the PlayStation was so successful, so more and more games were set aside for the PlayStation. So effectively, the adventure was dead because publishers wouldn't publish it and retailers wouldn't retail it. And, we've talked at length before, but I think it's worth again saying that, that all changed for us when we were approached by Apple, who were worried that the games that were appearing on their store were not using, they were very basic compared to what could be done. And we republished Beneath the Steel Sky in about 2008, 2009. And the game was really successful. And it was clear we had a really big fan base that we just didn't know that we had. And then a little bit later, I actually went to Uruguay. Uruguay felt to me like, well, it is literally on the other side of the world, but it was, incredibly exotic. And I gave a talk to some fairly young people, generally students. And, they were all huge Beneath the Steel Sky fans. And this was a franchise that, had been fairly dismissed by a lot of the publishers. And yet people out there, it was a really, really, really important game. And I've been in contact with Dave Gibbons for quite some time. And I went back to him and I said, you do realize that there's still enormous, underground support for this game. We got talking and said, well, we should write another one. So, really to write a sequel was a second game based on Beneath the Steel Sky without Dave Gibbons kind of would have been unthinkable. So really, had he said no, then it would never have happened. But he was very game, very much up for it. And, and we have the game that, we're really proud of. And Dave was thrilled because what we wanted to do was to create a graphic style that really matched what a comic book would have looked like. And our art director, Sucha Singh, who's wonderful, and I drove down to see Dave once he'd come up with, some of the scenes. And Dave was just blown away. And, again, I always say this, but Dave is wonderful. You'd have thought that somebody who produced something as seminal as Watchmen and the other comic books that he has, might be rather pleased with himself. But Dave is just great. So I've really, really enjoyed working on this game, I have to say. I think that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Absolutely.
But Jochen, before we go too far forward, and we ought to ask people if they've got any questions, but I would like to go back, talking about German culture.
Yes.
To a terrible mistake that I made. and that was, I remember going when we were in Vienna, beautiful Vienna, and I'd listened to Radio 4, which is our serious news channel. And they'd had a little piece about the fact that every New Year, Germans and German-speaking people watch this film called Dinner for One. Now, I thought this was just sort of English propaganda because it just felt so unlikely. So I had a few, glasses of very, very good Austrian beer. But I turned around to these fine people and I said, do you know what we're saying in England? And I roared with laughter because I thought it was so crazy that every New Year's Eve, Germans and Austrians will watch Dinner for One. And I roared with laughter. And I noticed that I was the only one roaring with laughter and everybody was looking at me. And I looked around and one of them said, but we do. And that was the most amazing. So talk us through Dinner for One.
That's a national treasure, isn't it? Dinner for One.
It really is. Every year. There's two versions of it. Did you know that? There's two versions because of the different Germanys back then. There's a version that uses a tablecloth, and there's one that doesn't because tablecloths weren't available.
In Eastern Germany?
Yeah. It was too fancy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's two versions of it. I always watch the tablecloth version. I don't know why. It's just aired at New Year's every year, so you watch it. I even downloaded it just so I had it in English.
So for our fine English people who probably will never have heard of Dinner for One, Jochen, tell us what it's all about and why it appeals so much.
It's why the appeal is that's quite a question. You have the 90th birthday of what's her name? Wendy lady. Oh, I don't get the name.
Oh God! Dinner for.
Yeah, I would do the same, but I'm in the picture. So there's the old lady.
Sophie.
Lady Sophie.
Yeah. Miss Sophie, yeah.
Miss Sophie.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the actress.
Same procedure as last year, Miss Sophie.
Same procedures every year, James.
Here we go. She hosts her 90th birthday, Miss Sophie, and has all these honorable guests like Admiral Snyder or Mr. Winterbottom. I don't know. And they're all dead. They're all not there. So it's an empty table. And the butler, he has to act all these dead guests of hers and have all the drinks with her. And he gets more drunk every round they do. He always stumbles over that is it a tiger? Tiger head. Yeah, a dead tiger head. And he always drinks the port and has to cheers and make the voices. And yeah, I think it ends with she goes up to her quarters and asks him to follow, and he just looks at her and says, "Same procedure as last year, Miss Sophie." And she, of course, says, "Wendy,
same procedure as every year, James."
So they go to her quarters together.
And to give myself
it's a banger every time.
To give myself credibility in Cologne at the amazing Gamescom, I remember it might have been with you, Jochen. We went to the booth and it was exactly the same as the year before. And I said to you, and I said, same procedure as last year, which I thought gave me enormous German credibility because that you or whoever it was immediately understood what I was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a national treasure. And there have been people tried to do newer versions, modern versions, but everyone just wants to watch the old thing.
Yeah, it doesn't slap the same way. It's just such an original. I don't even know why you watch it. It's just on TV, so you watch it, and like, I don't know. It's also like, for me, it's also like keeping the traditions of my grandparents, kind of like, like there's not a lot that I keep as a queer lesbian, so I gotta try in other areas.
Excellent. Yeah. So, Jochen, you've been asking me very good questions. I'm going to ask you. You became a father a couple of months ago. Why do you not have rings around your eyes from lack of sleep?
It's, I would say, I'm just lucky that I have this wonderful wife that just takes care of Hannes right now. And but you know what they say, they gave a lot back. And while they're draining your energies, you have at least 2 kids, about, and so you've been through that, and it gives me power too. It empowers me, and I'm looking forward, if should be nothing like a travel ban anymore, to maybe sleep in a hotel again at some point.
Well, I'm hoping
it's great. It's a big adventure too, and there are new puzzles every day, and you have to decipher the signs and the strange language he's using, and it's quite an adventure where you don't get back then I used to play adventure games with magazines, because at some point I would just look for the hints and solutions because I got too tired also. And you don't have that for a baby, really. They have hundreds of opinions, and better not listen to any. So when will you give me fatherly tips?
Well, when are you going to bring Hannes over to York?
Can I send him over?
Oh, please do. I love babies. That's what I love going, because the thing is that at weddings, as you may remember, I walk up to mothers who I've got no idea who they are and ask if I can cuddle their baby, and 90% of the time they're really happy, and then sometimes somebody probably with a bit of common sense will look at me like I'm very, very strange, and then I feel rather embarrassed. But most of the time it works extremely well.
Yeah.
So no, we're looking forward to to meeting Hannes. It's just a shame that travel is not as obviously as easy as it was a year ago.
But I remember also one time at Gamescom that you also had an issue with traveling, didn't you? You were before you took the train for the first time in Germany. You were in theory a big fan of the German train system, and it would be on time and going the directions you wanted to go. You were invited on that adventure treff party, which was just maybe with the local tram. It was maybe 2 stops over the Rhine, so maybe a trip of 10 minutes max. And I went maybe half an hour earlier, and you didn't arrive, and it took longer and longer and longer. So what happened again?
Well, I went on the platform because I'd forgotten, of course, that you drive on the wrong side of the road. And this train came in, and I asked somebody, is this going into Cologne? And he said, yes. So I jumped on, and it was first stop Dusseldorf in the other direction, which is like 50 kilometers away, or maybe even more. And it was a really, really long way away. It was really embarrassing. And I felt like an idiot. And do you know what, Jochen? I was really hoping that story was never, ever going to come out, because it kind of paints me as such a fool. But no, I was very embarrassed to arrive late. And, those adventure treff parties are amazing, aren't they? I mean, the whole of Gamescom is brilliant. Was it 400,000 people?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then at the end of it is the Gamescom party, where developers meet with young developers and also just adventure fans, and it's just fun. And sometimes people show their games off, and I met Ron Gilbert there last time, a lot of German developers, and it's it's a great end to Gamescom, and it does mean that you have to stay on an extra day, but it's well worth it, and it's nice and relaxed as well. And I always walk along the Rhine, and it's just great. It's just great. And I mean, because of course the last time that we met on the Rhine, I was sporting lycra. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, I can't get it out of my head. It was impressive with your rowing club, didn't you?
Yeah. We this was the Leverkusen, which for people who aren't from that region, Leverkusen is just downstream from Cologne.
And isn't it north of it? Leverkusen?
Downstream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but north. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry. I don't know which direction the Rhine flees.
I picture you with that old Dirke Weltatlas. Do you remember that one? That book with all the maps and...
Wonderful.
What we've done, and one you'll be very impressed by this. What this dear German friend who I row with in England, in York, had suggested that we all go, because he used to live in Cologne and row with the Leverkusen club, and they have a Rhine Marathon. You're on the Riesling again. We're going to have to come back to that one, Jochen. Anyway, so he suggested that we go for a little row, and it turned out to be a marathon, 26 miles, down the Rhine from Cologne or from Leverkusen down to Düsseldorf.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all very well, except that anybody who's seen those rivers, you have these enormous great barges, sometimes 4 barges, all bound together. And the rules, I bet you don't know this, the rules are that whoever's going upstream takes the slowest water, whoever's going downstream takes the fastest water. Now, normally you just drive on the right and, everybody knows where they stand. But on the Rhine, you really need to know what's going on, because these barges are crisscrossing, following the slower or the faster water. And the last thing they care about is a boat that may or may not get in their way. And the wash that comes off is absolutely extraordinary, but it was really fun. The only thing is that, and I know that you're a Schalke fan, and I don't know what side of the debate you're on, but I think the Kolsch, personally, I prefer the Kolsch to the Altbier.
Yeah, me too. And that's one of the big battles here, of course, Altbier versus Kölsch, and basically they're quite the same in where they come from, but I shouldn't probably say it too loudly here, because I'm in the center of Cologne. I'm a Kölsch fan too. And do you appreciate that they just bring glasses every time and they don't stop bringing you new glasses?
Are you talking about in Cologne?
Yeah.
Also for the Kolsch. Do you know, and I know this is a terrible thing to say, but there's such little glasses, and you have a sip and it's like, it's all gone. It's all gone. Now, admittedly, they do come back fast. So that's great, but you end up drinking a lot more than you would do otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
That's the great point. And I maybe to finish that drinking chapter, but maybe you want to talk about wine later. I have a really request for if you ever do another Broken Sword game, because you have a tradition that you featured a rude French waiter. And I probably experienced the Cologne waiters called Kürbis. Kürbis, they call them. They are also very heartwarmingly rude. Please feature these in one of your, maybe not in Broken Sword 6, maybe Broken Sword 10 or so. And I give you a lot of time to experience it, and you're always welcome here to get your rude treatment by Kürbis.
We need, I mean, really, Germany's just got such a rich history. It's kind of outrageous that we haven't, set more scenes in Germany, and that is certainly something that we very, very much intend to address.
Maybe that because there's also quite a difficult history.
No. We don't. That's long ago.
To some extent, you would go into Indiana Jones waters if you would feature this kind of history.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. Yeah. I think, and we're going to take any questions. I think we probably haven't got that much longer left. I want to ask a question that I realize for anybody who's German will be a really important one, and for anybody who's not, they'll have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. You are a Schalke fan, which is close to Düsseldorf. Who do the Schalke people hate? Which other team do they hate the most?
Dortmund.
It's
hard to say it.
And what
really,
right. Your wife, Marina, your lovely, lovely wife, who does she support?
I can't say twice. I can't. It's like if you say Candyman into the window, into the mirror too often, it will kill me. So,
Candyman, it's in German, it's Candyman. In English, it's Bloody Mary.
Is it?
Yeah. Wait,
okay.
Is it really Candyman or is it a German version of Candyman, like Zuckermann or something?
No, but they should be, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the idea.
Oh, it's a film. Oh, I see. Never mind. When it's out.
So I will not mention this yellow-black club.
The only thing I do notice is because I actually looked it up.
Yeah, I'm sleeping with the enemy, if you want to ask.
but I actually looked it up, and one of the two teams is almost at the top. I think they're second. And the other one is absolutely at the bottom of the Bundesliga.
Yeah, but if you turn it around, if you turn it upside down. Yeah, we had a rough start. I mean, we started in Munich, and they won 8-0. So, yeah.
Now, for talking about Munich, I didn't know you but when we did Broken Sword with Sony, the game had done really well, and I was in the process, I think, of finishing a game that we wrote called In Cold Blood, and I got a call from Sony in the UK, and they said that the development director had invited me to a football match, and I didn't really have time to go, but my wife told me that I really ought to go. Okay. And so I went back and said, yes, thank you, I'd love to come. And they went, great, we'll arrange the trips to Spain. I was going, oh no, I don't have time to go to Spain. It turned out to be the Bayern Munich, Manchester United final in 1999.
Oh,
which is one of the greatest football games and one of the greatest turnarounds. But the funny thing is that whenever I go to Munich now, and I just casually mention what a great game of football it is, tears start cascading down the people of Munich. Why is that, Jochen?
Because they managed to get 2 goals in extra time and lose in the end after they were on the winning side for more than 90 minutes of the match. But I should be very careful because just 2 years later in 2001 Schalke had that infamous 4 minutes championship, where they the last match day, the match was over. Everyone was celebrating already that Schalke was champion, and Bayern Munich, they got a lot of extra time, more than they ought to get, and in this extra time they managed to score in Hamburg, and that made them the champion. So that's we also have our trauma here. We are very traumatized people here.
Yeah. And we won't talk about football anymore. But Schalke's record against Chelsea is not very good, is it?
Nah, but I don't care. You can have your Chelsea.
Yeah. Well. What the one that I always found attractive, I have to say, is going to Hamburg and St. Pauli, and I love them because they kind of stand for certain values, and they're not very good, but everybody loves them anyway. So that's probably what a football club should be.
St. Pauli?
Yeah.
The Anarchist football club.
Are they Anarchist?
I thought that was the whole thing.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
That's
they're great.
Shtick. Exactly.
Cool. So getting back to games, tell me, what, Jochen, what are you playing these days?
I'm playing the diaper changer simulator.
For real.
For real. Yeah, I actually play a lot on Switch nowadays, and so I'm looking forward to a release of Beyond the Steel Sky on Switch maybe someday. Is there maybe a chance? We don't talk about it right now, or
I love my Switch as well. I love my Switch. I'm going to do what a politician would do. I'm going to change the subject very rapidly before Wendy intervenes.
All right, but do you think that Nintendo has caused the COVID-19 disease in order to sell more Animal Crossing copies? Because it just came out right after we had lockdowns everywhere.
Biggest nightmare is to not be able to support your game because everybody rushed through all of their content within 30 days. Yeah. And they got burned out. It was good for their sales, but that's not how they want their content to be enjoyed, I think.
Well, that's a great background.
The game I actually played when we went into the first round of lockdown was Untitled Goose game, which I loved, and I thought
honk, honk. It's also Goose Game Day, guys. You can be 2 geese.
Oh yes,
double trouble. I know this is not what the stream's supposed to be, self-promotion and stuff, but it's another really good indie game that you should play, and you probably do. You're a little goose, and you cause trouble on purpose.
And you can now play. You play as two geese, do you?
Oh well, exactly. You get a partner goose, so you can play with Norin.
Oh, there we go.
For those of you who don't know, it's a little cute puzzle game. So you're a little goose, and you need to get through a certain garden or a passageway, but there's humans, and you need to distract them somehow, and you need to figure out how. And it's really cute, and they just published a big update so that you can now play with your friend and be 2 geese, and it's very cute.
Do you think they need a German voiceover, maybe?
Have experience as goats. They're like,
I mean, because the thing is that, you must notice that the whack whack definitely sounds like it's an American goose. It doesn't have that German twang, does it?
Australian goose, right? Because they're in Australia.
Sorry, you're right. It's an Australian goose. It's an Australian goose. Except that it's definitely set in England. It's a sort of England because they've got a pub, haven't they? And I think
Australians have pubs.
I think. Well, maybe it's brilliant. Maybe everybody thinks that it's their game. One of the things that we're incredibly lucky at Revolution is, I remember again, I went to Christian's wedding actually a couple of years ago, and his brother said that he remembered playing Baphomet's Fluch with him. So I had the chance to talk to the brother, and I said, look, I wrote Baphomet's Fluch, and he was absolutely amazed. He said, but I thought it was a German developer. And the same thing actually happened with French as well, where they thought it was a French developer. So it is really interesting. When I was playing Untitled Goose Game, I was absolutely sure that it was English. It was an English pub, but it could be a German pub. I'll tell you what, I don't think it's an Australian pub, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. And that's part of the genius, isn't it? I mean, we're really lucky with video games that we can localize really. We've got very, very, professional and talented people that can do our localization. And then to that audience, it doesn't feel like a foreign game. It feels like, one of their own.
Absolutely. It's funny that you bring it up because I remember I played Baphomet's Fluch at a friend's place of my older brother. And I think until Baphomet's Fluch 3, I was also completely convinced that it's a German game, a German developer. And I think probably I learned about Revolution software when I got into the games industry and not any time earlier, because probably it's so well localized, and that's the reason. And so for me, it was always a German game. Complete.
That's really interesting. Well, as I say, when we re-released it onto the iTunes, the App Store, we had a problem because we couldn't call it. We had to come up with just one name. And that is such a shame because so many people recognized the game as Baphomets Fluch and then didn't recognize it when we released it as Broken Sword. But as I said earlier, it didn't matter 20 years ago. And now it's profoundly important because everybody's talking. And, many ways, that's of course why Beyond a Steel Sky has the English title, because I don't think it matters. I think that, the Germans who speak such, beautiful English, I don't think really care if the title is in English, as long as the game itself is well localized. Would that be a fair thing to say, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, talking about localization of the names of games or movies, it was quite traditional, maybe back in the 60s up to 80s or 90s, where movies really had really ridiculous German names. The English Carry On series.
Gosh, yes.
Yeah, and it was the Ist ja irre series, which was still okay, because Ist ja irre means something like, isn't it ridiculous? And so every movie was called Ist ja irre. But for instance, all the comedy movies that have been released in the 70s or 80s, they all got these ridiculous German names. For instance, there was this movie with Bill Murray. I think it's
Ich grüße das Murmeltier?
No, it was Meatballs.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
No, it's an older movie, Wendy. Sorry.
God damn it.
Old people talking here. So it was a comedy called Meatballs. That was the English name, and the German name was Ich glaub, mich knutscht ein Elch.
Ew, what the hell? Yeah, like the German ones are always so spoilery as well sometimes. Sometimes it's like The Forest in English, and the German subtitle will be Where the Killer Elves Attack, and you're like, well, thank you.
Exactly.
Great, awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm happy that you didn't localize, because probably that's what you applied here, that no one asked for you to call Beyond a Steel Sky, give it a German name.
I thought for a moment you were going to ask me to translate. I'm very glad you didn't. Anyway, sorry.
No, I know your limits.
Having said that, Jochen, you did introduce me. You did introduce me to the Bavarian waiters.
Did I? Oh yeah, I did. You mean the actual ones or the ones in the famous sketch?
Both. But do you know, I the Bavarian waiters was. Do you want to just describe? Because it was a brilliant sketch.
No, please do. You have to go ahead, because you can describe it much better than I do. Actually.
Well, so Monty Python had a huge following in Germany, and they actually produced a couple of sketches, because John Cleese speaks pretty decent German, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah.
And I think it was Terry Jones. Well, it was one of the other ones actually spoke reasonable German as well, and probably Michael Palin, because he's a very intelligent man. In fact, not saying that they're not all really intelligent. But do you know, I had the pleasure actually of meeting Terry Gilliam a few times, because through the BFI, and we had a right good conversation about that. And I told him that I'd met with you in a pub in Cologne, and that that it had just been brilliant that this 60s, 70s television series that was really popular in the UK but very underground, and had done so well in Germany, and people were still talking about it and still showing me clips from that particular sketch that was obviously recorded in German. And from what you said, was generally pretty good.
Yeah, and but is that something that had such an effect on you as well, when you were getting into games? The humor, the what we perceive here in Germany as the typical British humor, is that something you perceive yourself as a British man too? That is British humor, or is it just humor? It's a little sarcastic, maybe a little darker tone, a little, yeah.
How interesting. Well, when British children used to be brought up on the Beano. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Beano.
No.
But it's a comic book.
All right.
And it is the base humor that if you're 6 or 7 and are just learning to read, it's like perfect. And then you graduate onto Monty Python. The one that we could never get was Benny Hill, though. I mean, I remember at university turning around saying, why are they still making Benny Hill? And I went, because they're really successful overseas. And I think Germans, Germany liked Benny Hill, didn't they?
Yeah, it was quite popular. It wasn't never really my thing.
No.
I really more liked Monty Python and, of course, Fawlty Towers.
Fawlty Towers was so good, wasn't it? Although
God, it's so good.
I watched the Fawlty Towers the other day, and it hasn't quite. It's beginning to lose its resonance. I think it was the German episode that maybe didn't work quite so well, but it was hilarious at the time. I have a theory because there's this very fine city in Scotland called Dundee.
Mm-hmm.
And Dundee is where the Beano was published, D.C. Thompson. And of course, it's also where DMA wrote Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory is that the two things are connected. Now, Wendy's going to kill me because we don't have very much time. But I would like to tell you my theory, if I may. Yes?
Wendy has to allow it. I'm just waiting. Yes, please.
Yeah, let's go.
My theory is that
I still wonder, Wendy, why you wrote French in the chat here.
Because I cannot pronounce it, but Charles can for later when we do the questions. And don't worry, guys, we will ask the questions.
Yes,
I'm going to make them stay late.
Yeah, no. My French is much better than my German. So I think this is quite interesting, and that we, as I say, all British schoolboys, in particular, and a few schoolgirls would read the Beano, and the reason that both of those were produced in Dundee is because the port of Aberdeen is too small to take whaling ships.
Okay,
and the reason for that, and the logic follows thus. And I really believe this is true. And it's kind of interesting, I think, the way that this serendipity plays out. But basically, Scotland was a big whaling nation at the turn of the century, and through the 19th century. And they would have landed them in Aberdeen, but the Aberdeen harbour was too small. So they came down and they landed them in Dundee. And Dundee, the river is 3 miles wide at that point. So there's plenty of room. And because they were landing the whales, there was a lot of blubber. And Dundee is known for jute, which is like a rough, it's like linen, but much rougher. But they're famous both for linen and for jute.
Okay.
And the reason is because they need a lot of oil for the process. And so the whale oil allowed them to manufacture jute and linen. And they had machines that were very manually intensive. So people were very poorly paid. And they mainly women because they had small hands. And then the business folk got very excited by something called the chess-playing Turk. It was an automata. Mm-hmm. It was an automata that played chess and beat most people. And they said, surely, if an automata can play chess, we can design a machine that doesn't require the manual intervention. And so they spent huge amounts of money and came up with the machine that could, automatically spin, steam powered. Now, the chess playing Turk was actually a cheat. There was a little man in there who got into this box and actually was controlling it from underneath. But they didn't know that, and nobody else knew that. But it meant that suddenly the whole of Dundee became automated because these automatic machines came in. And the women who used to have the really bad jobs became the engineers and the technicians, and they became very high value. And at the same time, because the whales were being landed in Dundee, the paper mills from Scandinavia started landing the paper there, which is why DC Thompson, publisher of the Beano and many others, started, producing there.
Mm-hmm.
But the key to it then was that as the industry declined, ultimately those people were very skilled, and Timex started manufacturing in Dundee, and Clive Sinclair, who produced the ZX81, licensed the production to Timex, which meant that suddenly all these skillful people were being used to assemble the Sinclair ZX81 and learned all about computing. And that is why a young engineer called Dave Jones, who founded DMA, was working at Timex along with a lot of colleagues. And to me, the reason that was the Grand Theft Auto was so great was it had the sort of influence of the Beano and also the technology that came through, all because you couldn't land a whale in Aberdeen. There you go.
Things came together. That's. I hope everyone took notes. it's a great story.
Wendy, because of that, I'm afraid we've gone slightly over.
And so you have to nachsitzen.
What you tell us what we do.
Yes, so we are moving into the question segment. I posted a little French question in the chat. Would you like to read it out and then translate it and then respond to it?
Okay. It says oui, which is obviously yes. So I don't know what the question is, but is this the answer to something? Anyway, it goes oui, mais plutôt en style point and click, old school. Ça manque cruellement ces dernières années, je trouve. Did you translate this properly?
I didn't translate it at all. I copy and pasted it. This does not make sense. I'm so sorry. I should have known by the lack of the question mark, but I just thought it was sloppy.
I'm not sure. I think if when I was at school, if I'd written a sentence like this, yes, but we're still writing in the point and click old school. That monk is presumed style is cruel. The last year's je fais. Oh, je fais. Is it mashed? So dernière année, je trouve, is the last year's, I find. I'm not sure exactly. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure exactly what it means.
That's okay. We're moving on. This is a German stream. Forget this ever happened. Nobody clipped that.
Yeah, it's a little offensive here to.
Okay, wonderful. So let me look through your wonderful questions. So somebody said, Worms T17 said, George and Nico should definitely be snooping around York in a future Broken Sword game. And then said, slightly off topic, but Charles, you mentioned that Tintin was a big inspiration. You said that earlier on Discord, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for you and your work. Like to ask, what did you think of Secret of the Unicorn film?
Ooh, look. In the background, there is a Tintin poster that was put up 5 minutes before this live stream because I thought that the wall looked very bare, and I've been meaning to put it up on the wall for like 6 months. Stephen Moffat wrote the film, and I think he's very talented. I didn't think the CG quite worked myself. I was very excited, and I thought that the trailer looked great. Not a huge fan myself. But every time, in fact, just hang on there, and I shall show you.
Off he goes.
Yeah. But whenever I'm thinking about characters, I am a great fan of this, which is it's a book that my wife gave me for my birthday, probably 30 years ago. And what it has is it has all the Tintin characters. And what I love about them is that you can see from their faces and the way the characters are designed exactly what you can expect. And I think they work well in an adventure game. And I hope that the Broken Sword characters do, because they are archetypal. We say they're archetypes, not stereotypes, because archetype is good and stereotype is bad, but it kind of means a very similar thing. And it means that when you come across a character, you can see how they're going to behave. And that then opens up the opportunity for us to design the characters so that the puzzles then hopefully make sense, because in this world, you know what everybody's going to do. What was the first? What was the first? Oh,
Wendy, as you're talking about the German localization, should we shock Charles with the German name for Tintin?
Thinking about it. Guess what the German name for Tintin is? And I want to tell you, it's so far off. My wife and I talked about completely different things when we talked about it the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's not Tintin, obviously.
No. It's two very different names.
What is it?
Tim and Struppi.
Tin and Struppi.
No, Tim, like Tim Burton.
Tim and Struppi.
Yeah.
And Struppi is snowy.
Yeah, probably. Like because he's struppelig, because he's like struppy, exactly. I don't know. So maybe some people can relate.
Little of the magic, doesn't it?
It reminds me of a wonderful television kids that when I was a kid, there was something called the Magic Roundabout.
Mm-hmm.
And the Magic Roundabout had a rabbit called Dylan that was permanently stoned. Even as a sort of 8-year-old, you knew that he'd actually been doing something to make his mind go slightly wild. It turned out that the translator is because the Magic Roundabout was either from France or Belgium. I don't remember which. I think it was probably French. But the guy who translated it didn't speak a word of French. So what he did is he watched it and then just turned it into his own hippie, dope-crazed thing. And all these kids are watching this going, this is all very strange. So it was the kind of I guess it's the kind of the same. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. A lot of people are very excited by the idea of a Hasselhoff reference in any Broken Sword game that has a wall to destroy.
You know, the guy who brought the wall down.
Okay, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
How much was he on?
Like the walls of Jericho and the trumpet. He was.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, when the Berlin Wall fell, David Hasselhoff was kind of like dancing on it and saying, I've been looking for freedom, and he still, to this day, claims a small piece of having made the wall fall, taking away from the people who actually made it possible. But sure, anyway, he's well off. He does retail commercials now, real estate commercials now in is it Shanghai? Or is it Turkey? I can't never remember. But he's well off.
But he's still touring the German TV shows, and he's still sporting his leather jacket with the little light bulbs on it. And so because he's like this illuminated jacket he's wearing, he used to wear on the Berlin Wall. So yeah.
Yeah, he definitely stuck in his face, which, you know, that's fine. If you found a place you like aging into, that's completely fine.
But you have to say, Knight Rider and Baywatch were both huge things.
God, Knight Rider was amazing. I had such a crush on the car when I was a kid. Anyway, next question.
So why on earth are we talking about David Hasselhoff? How did we get onto that?
I think we were talking about Dinner for One and the divide between like Eastern and Western Germany, and somebody just mentioned the wall.
I remember that so well. Yes.
Or get a David Hasselhoff reference into your games.
Yeah, you should. People would like it. At least 2 people. So, somebody said it in German. Für mich war Blasphemous Fluch der erste richtige Kontakt mit Revolution Software, womit ich eine tolle Zeit verbinde, which is just a nice comment. Somebody said, Kaputtmachmann said, Danke Revolution, wir lieben Adventures. Somebody said, a lot of people say, Broken Sword 6. Sorry.
Well, do you know what?
Only if you and all your friends buy Beyond the Steel Sky, and Charles can afford his high society life in York for the next years, and he can probably do a Broken Sword 6. So go out, buy.
No, we are extraordinary. I mean, I said this before, but we're extraordinarily lucky to have such a passionate community. I mean, Wendy, we're very lucky that you joined us, 6 months ago now?
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
I know. And aren't people just lovely?
Yeah, they are. I really fell in love with the studio. I came from another studio I was really like deeply like entrenched in. I was there for like years. So I thought I could never find love again. You know how it is, but no, you don't because you built your own family. But yeah, like it's very hard to let go and move on from studios that you love very much. So I'm really happy I landed here.
Oh, bless you. We love having you.
Imagine how I felt because I was there to bury THQ back then. I was at the burial of the old THQ. I was there up to the very end, and I got the best out of it. I got the friendship with Charles, so that prevails.
Okay, somebody asked, have you planned to continue Broken Sword as a graphic novel at some point?
That's such a nice idea, isn't it? That's such a nice idea. I really enjoyed working with Dave Gibbons, and wouldn't that be a fantastic? The only problem is that Dave says that he's retired. He said the only difference, obviously, is one, I'll only work on things that I want to work on, and two, I can spend more time on the internet without feeling guilty. But beyond that, nothing's changed. So you know, a graphic novel with the right partner would be absolutely fantastic. That's
you know
what
that
idea.
means? Spam us your art. Okay. Hey Leute, klasse Stream. Freue mich richtig auf Beyond the Steel Sky auf Deutsch. Meine Frage wäre, wart ihr involviert bei der Auswahl der Sprecher? So in English that's, hey guys, great stream. I'm really looking forward to Beyond the Steel Sky in German. My question is, were you involved by the selection of the voice actors?
Well, that's great because we talked about this briefly, but you know, our real maestro in all of this is the great Jochen Langenbach, who really did all of that. He not only was he the casting director, but he was the starring role as well. I mean, just
So we go back to the
talent is unbelievable.
Since then, I've become a heavy drinker.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for giving you such a hard time finding the correct Foster. I think we rejected like 6 of them.
No, that was no. I mean, give all the credit first of all to Jörg Mackensen and Toneworks in Hamburg because the team they've got they are really great and they've got that big range of speakers. But yeah, you got me into choosing the right speakers when you already started choosing. And I remember, Wendy, your feedback was to say it not. I try not to say it like a German would say. So you were really on point with your feedback and really.
I was harsh.
You were really harsh and really destroying people.
I am so sorry.
I hope these speakers never got to see your feedback.
No, that's the point, right?
Of everyone watching, all these actors have been rejected because, I mean, even if Charles liked them, he was really afraid of Wendy's.
I think we found a really good Foster in the end. I'm very sorry about being so mean.
You're right.
You're mean about some of them and nice about others. But we were also very lucky because one of our test guys, Liam, is Anglo-German. I'm not sure if he's more English or more German, but he speaks perfect German. And Wendy and he were able to give really good feedback. And then Jochen, thank you for your feedback as well, because we looked long and hard for an English for Robert Foster as well. And I remember what we didn't want to do was to have a long delay between the English German and the what happened was that with COVID we had to just stop. We'd already got the English. We were very lucky. We already had the English. And what normally happens is that when the German record, they like to be able to listen to the English because it gives them the intonation, it gives them the context, and it makes it much more straightforward to then record. But COVID came in the middle of that, so we weren't able to start the German recording. And I wanted to minimize the time between the English and the German. But we went round and round. We had Toneworks did a great job in giving us lots of, very talented voices, but they weren't right for Foster. And I remember going to them and going to Toneworks and going, look, I know I'm pushing you to produce this as quickly as possible, but we have to hold on because we need to get the right Foster. And I am very grateful to you, Jochen, for, as you say, getting on the train and going to Hamburg and talking directly to the team at Toneworks and really helping us out. And Wendy for your feedback as well, and Liam for his as well.
And I was really, I mean, it was for me to see how passionate you guys, including yourself, Charles, of course, including your very passionate co-worker Wendy, and all the people working at Toneworks on finding the right person. Because I mean, it's not no one's saying these were bad voice actors.
No, they weren't.
Not
they were
at all.
Fantastic people.
All they were fantastic voice actors, but find the right one for the right role. I mean, not every voice actor can do all the roles on a similar level. And others would be fine with someone who is just able to pronounce correctly and maybe have a solid, stable voice and would say, yeah, go on with it. And that's probably where you really differentiate between the okay translations and the really good ones. And so and if I may say just a quick thing, I really hope you didn't remove the goat voice, because it gave me closure, because back in 1995 my brother was working for a short time in LA for a localization company called JBI Localization, and they when I was visiting my brother there, they did localization for Space Quest 6. And so I met the two guys from Andromeda there, and I also asked, can I do a voice? And so they gave me a voice, and we started doing these voiceovers, and they were quite okay. But in the end, and talking about quality assurance, quality control, the son of the owner of the localization company came in and said, I wanted to say, get it out. Yeah, now you do it. Jochen, you're out. And he was, it was so, And so this was really, for 25 years. For 25 years, it was really torturing me. And now you gave me closure.
Fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. That's
so
fantastic.
If you remove me, it will kill me forever.
All right, let's do a very, very short last question, and it's very sweet, and it's, Charles, are there locations in Broken Sword actually based on real sites? I tried to find Mount Faucon and not my language, and Roucherie. Once I've been in Paris, but I couldn't find any Templar hanging sites, etc.
Okay. Oh, bless you. The you can't climb to the top of Notre Dame because of the tragic fire.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, with Notre Dame, which is such a magnificent building, there's something extraordinary. I think over the centuries, different French people kept building bits onto Notre Dame. And with all of that gone now, you have this magnificent Gothic building without any of the bits that probably were never there in the first place. And I think it looks amazing. Anyway, if you climb up to the bell tower and look down, you'll see the opening scene from Broken Sword. There's a gargoyle from the first Broken Sword. There's a gargoyle, and then you see the River Seine going into the distance. Also, if Montfaucon doesn't exist anymore, I'm afraid we took a liberty. Montfaucon is a place in Paris, but the gibbet, which is where they hang people, doesn't exist anymore. But in Broken Sword 5, if you go to the area just below Sacré-Cœur, you'll see a very similar view to the one that we have. If you go to the Catacombs, which is the Royaume de Mort, the Kingdom of Death, then you'll see very similar scenes in that. If you go to Les Égouts, which is the sewers, which kind of connect with all of that, you'll see it. And there are probably lots of others as well. The Prada, the covered market area. So we do use a lot of locations. In the director's cut, you go into la conciergerie, and the conciergerie is just on the by the Pont Neuf, which is on the Ile Saint-Louis. So all of those places. So there are an awful lot of places that we put in that do genuinely exist, and that's really, really important. And also anything that we say historically is accurate as well. I was watching something this morning that said, got so much inspiration from the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, which is not altogether true, because so much of the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail is utter nonsense.
There's a whole 5-minute rant on YouTube where Charles just keeps trashing Dan Brown and other artists. If you don't watch that, that's still up on our channel.
The last thing I will say is that it's really important to actually go to these places and get excited by the history and by talk to people, rather than doing everything on Google, which is what you can do. And I wouldn't like to say that Dan Brown does, but he kind of does. And that basically means that what you're following on is the conspiracy theories of people that have published it, rather than actually going and experiencing places for yourself. So anyway, I'll stop my rant. I didn't know there was a 5-minute rant. I didn't know there was a 5-minute piece on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's not on our channel, to be honest. I think you interviewed with a German lady back in 2015, 2011, maybe even. And it just she's like, oh, were you inspired by Dan Brown? And you destroyed her. Y'all did not know what was coming her way. But yeah, it's really nice that so many people still care about Broken Sword. I can personally assure you, Charles would never stop talking about a potential of carrying on the beautiful saga. So it's always in the back of our minds.
But
and in our vision.
But Beyond a Steel Sky, we've got great. I mean, on Apple Arcade, we got fantastic reception.
Yeah,
Apple did the most amazing video to support it. And on Steam, we're currently at 9 out of 10. So and it's doing well. I mean, we're just incredibly lucky at Revolution, and I guess maybe it's just because I'm quite old. That Revolution, we've had 30 years of writing games,
and now with the third patch hitting Steam, in case you didn't see it yet, we have patch notes up for it. It introduces the 20% off Return of the Launch Day sale for those of you who waited for the VO or for the game to be most stable, or even for achievements, which are in now as well. And to top the 20% off as well, we have the Aspiration Day bundle sale, which released alongside with it, giving you an extra 10% and a complete the set bundle. Or a complete the set option, sorry. So you get the original soundtrack, you get free comics. There's other stuff in it as well, but it's 7:30 and I'm tired. And as always, hilarious patch notes. Not plugging myself, but plugging myself.
Your patch notes are brilliant. Your patch notes are brilliant, Wendy. Come on, you need credit where credit's due.
Yeah, they're great patch notes. I'm very proud of them. But it wouldn't be possible without Matt, who's very quietly streaming it. We should let him get home soon. So guys, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to support us as always, leave a positive review on Steam, or leave any review on Steam, really. You don't even have to say much. If just leave your honest experience. If you are playing on Apple Arcade, that's fantastic, especially if we inspired you to get it, which is, the biggest honor for us is if we can convince people to, try out something that can sound very scary for people who, grew up with, hard disks and stuff, changing to a streaming service. It's scary. So for trusting us with the service, for subscribing to Apple Arcade, that's amazing. And thank you. And thank you for supporting other creators on there as well. Yeah, we hope you enjoy the German voiceover. And for the people waiting for the French stream, we will announce a date once our speaker has confirmed when he's free.
But it's definitely going to be next week. Definitely next week.
Yeah, we definitely want to do one next week. So do stay tuned for that. And you can follow us on our socials where we'll loudly blast it. Or even better, on discord.gg/one word, Revolution Software. All right, Jochen, thank you so much for joining us. It was really great nerding out with you in German.
Dankeschön.
Ja, voll toll.
Gute Nacht. Gute Nacht. Dankeschön.
Gute Nacht, alle.
Gute Nacht zusammen. Vielen Dank.
Good, bye. Do you take us off, Matt?